In this session, we're going to talk about engagement. Engaging members to draw upon their skills and leadership, to engage them to their full potential and to the greater good of the club through their shared efforts. Welcome to everyone. I'm happy to see you all joining us on this Facebook or this webinar opportunity. I want to thank all of you for tuning in, and I want to say a special thank you to our Sertoma staff, the selected officers and board who have made this all possible. Janice and Brandy and Aaron, you have demonstrated incredible insight to bring this convention and training to possibly more Sertomans than we have reached in many years, and I thank you. This virtual training is using the webinar format. It does not allow us to see all of you, and unfortunately that limits our interaction during the session. A question and answer feature is available, as you realize, and we can take those questions and answer later, as Aaron indicated. You may have also noted this session is offered with closed captioning, and if you haven't used that feature already, I encourage you to if you need it. So let's get on with talking about engaging our members. We want to talk about engaging them specifically in service, growth, and leadership. I first began putting my thoughts together for this training early this year before COVID-19 began to impact us. A lot has changed since then. While we say this too will pass and our clubs will return to normal operations and engaging our volunteers will return to some form of normalcy, we face different and difficult challenges to engage our club members. I've kept my original plans for volunteer engagement because we will return to some normal operations, but have shortened the 3 planned segments I had to give some time at the end for a 4th segment where I found some interesting inputs on COVID-19. We'll go ahead and tell you that I'm amazed at the amount of information that's available on the web as it pertains to volunteer engagement. Sure, the word engagement, when first mentioned, you might think of romantic engagement, preparing to be married. But for you more mechanical types, better back up a little bit here. But for you more mechanical types, you might think of a car, the engine engaged to the wheels through the transmission and drivetrain. More relevant to us is Sertoma engagement, engaged or committed in some way to a cause or an action. I hope many of you have gone to the Sertoma.org Member Center, Training Center Library, and reviewed the short videos on engagement and member involvement. They are excellent primers for what we are going to do in this session. By primers, I am saying that the points made in those sessions are the groundwork for engaging members. This training is not intended to duplicate those very valuable lessons, but we will draw upon them during the session in a moment to point out some of the high points. Going back, there's some great resources available. And I hope you have gone to the Sertoma.org Member Center and looked at the short videos on engagement and member involvement. They're excellent primers for what we're doing in this session. By primers, I'm saying that the points made in those sessions are great for engaging members. This training will not duplicate those lessons, but we will draw upon them during the session moment, and we will use them and refer to them throughout the presentation. The online training emphasizes how important it is to connect with our fellow members, listening, sharing, and together forming bonds and involving new member tools, and make sure they have an engaged connection, and that's what strengthens the club. Those concepts are essential to building a cohesive and engaged membership. I consider those videos as administrative, the administrative perspective, if you will. This session takes those administrative techniques and suggests how we can engage our members operationally to make our club stronger. We want to come away with this session with how we can achieve maximum success in conducting an event, growing the club, and leading the club to greater officer and potential involvement. Here's our objective. We want to talk about how to inform and use those operational procedures for member engagement so that they can be applied to events, growth, and leadership development. Here are a few of the tips that are offered in those training videos from the online training library that apply to our discussion on events, growth, and leadership development. Ask, listen, observe, and then act. I cannot emphasize how important these 4 words are in guiding our actions. Ask the right questions in the right way. It might be one-on-one or perhaps in a group meetings, even using social media and possibly by survey. Listen and value the new voices and new ideas. Make contact in person or maybe by phone, even written sharing. Avoid the temptation to be reactive. Allow venting and opposing views to be heard, considered, and evaluated. Observe and practice active listening. Be honest. Thank members for their participation. Use personal calls or a note. Publicly recognize contributions at meetings and use the press or social media when appropriate. And act to take action and use what you hear, observe, and learn. We will take these tips and learn how to apply them operationally as we look at event planning, execution, club growth, and leadership development. We will continue to emphasize these tips. How does engagement operationally impact an event or project the club might choose? We have all heard that 80% of the work is done by 20% of the membership. How does that operational engagement address the managing of any event or project to shift that 80-20 to something more favorable like 80-40 or even 100% of the work being utilized and utilizing 80% of the membership? It's not realistic to expect that every member will be involved in every event, nor that all members will be involved in a single event. Now, if you have a particular success story to share that emphasizes how your club has engaged your members and achieved some success to combat that 80-20 issue, please make plans to share them as part of the question and answer opportunity after this session. Activities for fundraising and service are usually our most labor-intensive undertakings, where we want as many members engaged as possible. Now, the life of a fundraiser starts with an idea and ends with recognition for individuals and the club. In between, we have a variety of intermediate components that vary by activity and are parts of engagement. To make the operational aspects of engagement more detailed for you, I'm going to use a fundraiser event idea and apply some of the techniques from the online library training. Let's look at an idea from a new member and let's see how it goes. During a luncheon meeting, a new member proposed that we might be able to raise $1,000 for a hearing education scholarship by selling dried pig's ears for $5 a pair. Oops. Did I sense that some of you just reacted negatively to that, dismissing the idea when you heard dried pig's ears? Let me remind you, we need to ask, listen, and observe before we act or perhaps react. Understand the value of new voices. This may be a fundraiser never before considered or proposed. New members and their voices are often simultaneous, and the stimulus, I should say, that we need. Does the idea have a unique perspective about it? Yeah, probably. Does a hearing scholarship fit with our mission? Yes. So ask the right questions and listen. Our ears. Pig's ears the best approach? Do we have a source for dried pig's ears? Well, possibly in Kansas, Nebraska, and Iowa. Perhaps not so many are available in other parts of Sertoma land. What about using those soft plastic ears instead of dried pig's ears? What if we got the local pub to have a beers for ears night, where people wearing our ears could buy beers at $1 off and ask the bar to donate a portion of the sales? People arriving at the bar could even buy ears at the door. Now we've got folks talking. What do we need to do to plan for this? Who and how many members are needed? This is a chance for leaders to choose a working group and develop the idea further. The person with the original idea should definitely have a role in this group. Could we contact the local office supply to provide a poster boards even, or a banner listing them as a supporter in some clever way with ears? Whatever you do, and we saw this a moment ago, try to avoid being reactive. Make sure you listen to the participants and thank the participants as you go along. It's a huge jump from idea to recognition. But when we achieve our goal and we involve the membership to their maximum, then we have a chance for success. Success breeds success. When we take an idea, develop it, and achieve success in a fundraiser or service event, more members will want to jump on board. When members see the event or even see themselves in action, that is good. Demonstrate success so engagement becomes contagious. We never have enough time during training, whether it be virtual or in person, to capture everyone's great ideas or success stories. Sertoma gives us that opportunity to share our success stories, not only on the question and answer format, but sending your stories to sertoma.org website to share your story with other clubs members so that they can learn and build on your success. The Sertoma Member Corner on Facebook will get your word out even quicker. We will now shift our thinking to engagement, as it can become a positive for club growth. In addition to the training on engagement available online, you can find club training videos for recruitment, retention, and other lessons to enhance growth. These, like other videos, should be made a part of your individual pursuit of club leadership success, and even be offered as training for your club and board members if you need assistance. Back up one here. Now, if you need assistance in bringing these club trainings and a variety of other offerings to your club, let it be known to your communications specialist. During your next interactive contact, or reach out to Sertoma headquarters and ask for a training and support specialist to present specialized training you feel would benefit your club. That can be done utilizing Zoom or Google Meet, a similar conferencing platform. Club membership growth requires engagement by all members. Whether they realize it or not, they are important to growth. Not every club member is an engagement specialist when it comes to growth or recruiting members. Not every member is inclined to bravely invite or ask a new member to join. We should recognize that growth and retention is an engagement issue. Every member is a part of the club fabric and the club's personality. As leaders, we should establish growth goals and let every member know how they contribute to growth and retention. Does every member need to recruit 1, 2, or 3 new members? Of course not. That's not reasonable to expect. Does every member contribute to the positive recruiting experience when a prospective member attends a meeting? You bet. That is the engagement factor to be emphasized here as it relates to growth and retention. While some can get the prospect in the door, other members have the responsibility to make that prospect feel the fellowship, the benefit of shared service, and the value of becoming a part of our organization and its mission. That is engagement. How is that done? Again, let me share an actual example. A Sertoma member is waiting for their car to be serviced at a car repair facility and doing some work on a laptop computer. Another person waiting sees the person working and asks, are you doing your work remotely these days? Response, well, sort of. I'm doing some stuff for the volunteer organization where I share time. I'm involved with Sertoma, which stands for Service to Mankind. That's a volunteer organization with the primary mission of extending services to people with hearing problems. The conversation goes back and forth and leads to the Sertoman learning that the acquaintance has a granddaughter with hearing problems since birth. Also, the conversation yielded that now a prospect had been a mining engineer before retiring. The Sertoman shares, well, we have a member who serves on the board of the Western Museum of Mining and Industry. The prospect was invited to a meeting. It was no accident the prospect was introduced to the museum board member and seated also with a person who was another engineer. The prospect joined. Sadly, after several months, the new member relocated to the Central Valley of California, where we no longer have a club. He wanted to be near his children. From an engagement perspective, what can we learn from this? Ask, listen, observe, and act. Ask the right questions in the right way and listen. Learn through conversation the prospect's interests and background. Observe common links and interests between the prospect and current club members. And then act to invite the prospect to a club meeting and facilitate introductions to members with whom the prospect might be able to share mutual interests. Don't be reactive. Be honest. Follow up. Use what you hear and use that effectively. See how you might translate the individual's interests to Sertoma and the Sertoma mission. When extending the invitation, make sure you have the prospect's contact information so that you can confirm details of the club meeting and follow up. And personal details about the prospect to share during an introduction. Those are valuable conversation starters for other member interaction and engagement. When that person attends, don't be afraid to stack the deck. Make sure you stack it in your favor. Make sure the person is greeted and seated among individuals who are conversant and who might share common interests. The meeting setting, or even at a service event where the prospect is invited, is where all members have an engagement role and help in the growth process. Just because a member is not active as a person who invites new members to a meeting, they still have an important role. By sharing their experiences and interests, all members create an environment that is positive and appealing for the individual. By members sharing their experiences, we help create that positive environment, and we have a better chance of engaging that individual to join us. Even if you're not a person who invites to a meeting or events, you can be engaged in recruitment by just sharing your interest, listening, and even relating your story about Sertoma, about your club, and how you help service grow. All members can be engaged in the growth and recruiting of new members. Engaging members to become leaders is as important as events and club growth in the long term. Simply stated, a failure to engage membership with leadership skills to serve as elected officers or committee chairs contributes to that 80-20 concept we talked about earlier. It might be the easy way out to continue electing the same secretary or treasurer year after year because they know the job, even do it well. Even re-electing a past president is no solution or guarantee to long-term survivability. We may be overlooking someone very qualified if we do not offer assistance and training. Just because a person has not stepped forward in the club, we cannot risk overlooking demonstrated ability in their chosen profession, actively working now or retired. When we listen to individuals with opposing ideas to the way we are currently doing business, those concerns may be just the catalyst we need to move forward. Resistance is not always bad. As leaders, we can and must mentor new leaders. When we challenge, encourage, and assist an individual who can and should be engaged, we make our club stronger through new ideas and new energy. It will usually not happen if we don't express our confidence in the person and ask. By encouraging a member to take on a role they can do, we give them an opportunity to develop new skills. For a member still in the workforce, this is a resume enhancer for them toward future promotions and responsibilities in their chosen profession. For a retired person with a history of accomplishments, we are wasting an opportunity if we are not taking advantage of that individual to demonstrate and inspire other members to achieve. Now, here's an approach for you to consider. Every club has a group who clearly lead. You know them, and they are probably in that 20% group we talked about already. We also have a group of capable and dependable members who have demonstrated skills and are prospective leaders. Sadly, too many of these are reluctant to step up to be officers and future leaders. Some have already had roles and would like to sit back, but we still need their assistance. They must be approached to become more engaged. These first two groups are the leadership pool for us to concentrate on in the short term. We have a third group who are dependable workers in service, but simply for reasons of training, experience, or motivation, do not want to go above the worker bee level. As leaders, and in your advisory role with other club leaders, make 3 lists with member names. Your name should be in one of the columns. The closer your name appears to the left, the more responsibility you have to identify a person to your right for a leadership role. You don't need to share your list or publicize your list. Engagement of future leaders can be explained by listening and learning about that member who might be your replacement as the secretary, treasurer, the vice president of programs, or membership. If you are sitting at the same table at every meeting and only talking to the same members, you might never know who in the club can do your job better. Don't take that personally, but why would you be selfish and not want your club to be improved through new ideas and new leadership that can be offered? Ask the right questions in the right way. A one-on-one or two-on-one approach is much preferred to a multiple situation where you have a group meeting or something like that. Make sure you prepare in advance. Like we are recruiting a prospective member, plan to respond to resistance. Overcome, I don't have the time with a response that works with them. I don't have the time with a realistic estimate. Give them a realistic estimate of the time that is needed to devote to the job and the persons who will assist. Overcome that, but I could not do it as well as the current person with, I'm talking to you because I think you can do it even better. Anticipate and prepare. Listen, observe, and understand what you hear in new voices, in person, making check-in phone calls and written exchanges. A person-to-person interaction, a person-to-person interaction is much preferred. Getting ahead of myself here. Leadership takes on many responsibilities. And even when your time as a vice president of programs or secretary president for that matter comes to a term end, the role of continuing the club leadership is not done. Leaders must always be identified, nurtured, and developed to take your place. I want to thank all of you for giving me this chance to be engaged. And I'm sure some of you have thoughts. You haven't told me anything, or some of you would say, you haven't told me anything I haven't heard before. Possibly so. And for you and everyone listening, my challenge to you and myself is to use these things we have shared. We can and must strive to do better. Before we close, these are the major takeaways I hope you can take back to your clubs. First, and view or review the engagement training sessions online at sertoma.org. Affirm how those of us can best interact with and learn about and engage with our members. Second, I would emphasize that all of us as club leaders not only take the online training to heart, but break down our events and activities and emphasize that successful engagement breeds success. Third, every club member plays a role in club growth. If not by engaging a prospective member and inviting them to a meeting, asking them and sharing with them conversation along common interests. Affirming with all members how they can be engaged in the club growth plan is important. Finally, as a fourth takeaway, accept your role as club leaders to reach out, to establish relationships, to enlist and to engage members with leadership skills for club positions. Encourage them to take your place and make your club better. As leaders, be responsible. Let me try something here. As leaders, be responsible for your members, your club, your region, and Sertoma. You are the future under Vision 2020. As I shared at the beginning, I found a lot of engagement information related to how we can engage volunteers during COVID-19. I would now like to share some excerpts from a larger training video entitled Engaging and Supporting Volunteers During Coronavirus. It is one of many training videos made by Adisa Energize and funded by the Laity Foundation. It's a little over 36 minutes long in its entirety, but I'm only going to show about 6 to 8 minutes of clips from it. I encourage you all to view it in its entirety. I'm going to now try to go to that video, and we'll see if we have any problems here. Bear with me a moment. Okay. Okay. What's loaded here? We're doing a little bit of a load. We had been loaded an hour ago, but it dropped it. So standing by. Aaron, I've lost my ability to share. There we go. Well, there's a new share.
Welcome to this training on engaging and supporting volunteers during coronavirus. This training was made possible thanks to the generous support of the Laity Foundation. I'm Betsy McFarland, and I will be your trainer today. I'm a principal consultant at Adisa, which also runs Energize. My focus is helping organizations to engage volunteers strategically and effectively. I'm excited to be with you today, so let's get started. We have a lot of ground to cover in this training. We're going to talk about the importance of staying connected to volunteers during crisis. I'm going to provide you examples of innovative volunteer engagement strategies that other organizations are using in response. I'll also share some tools for leveraging technology as you move to this more virtual environment. And we'll take a moment to process some considerations for mitigating risk to volunteers and the organization. And lastly, we'll spend a little time thinking about how to make the most of this potential downtime for yourself.
Like our Sertoma online training, the next clip I'm going to show you emphasizes the importance of making the best of communicating with our members.
Volunteers are clearly a powerful force in communities, and I want to take a moment to touch on the connection between volunteerism and philanthropy. We often think of volunteers and donors as two separate people, but in reality, they're often the same. The research tells us that volunteers donate to charity at twice the rate as non-volunteers. That's 80% of volunteers donating compared to 40% of non-volunteers. 87% of volunteers say there's an overlap between the organizations they support financially and where they volunteer, which means volunteers are not just giving their time, but they're giving their money where they give their time. And 50% of volunteers say they give more financial support because they volunteer. It's the volunteer work that is motivating them to donate their money. So volunteers are a critical resource for organizational sustainability. In good times and in bad, our volunteers will be there for us if we support them. And that even with so many volunteers being sidelined right now, they can still help us. We can still be connected to them. We just need to be creative. Let's talk about some ways we can stay connected to our volunteers during this time. Of course, your volunteers care and they miss you. If they are being sidelined at the moment, they are really missing that interaction with the organization. They can still do a lot for you and provide support. And so it's important to stay in touch with them, because if we don't, volunteers can feel like the organization doesn't miss them. They can lose some trust in the organization, and even their interest may wane. So keeping volunteers connected will help ensure that they're ready to come back when this crisis is over and we're able to get back to work. Regular communication with volunteers is critical. Ensure your volunteers know when they're going to receive updates on what's happening in the organization. Share operational issues so volunteers know what's happening as these things are evolving. And provide opportunities for two-way communication, not just one-way emails where you're sending them updates, but provide opportunities to engage in conversation and dialogue so the volunteers can share how they're doing as well. When communicating with your volunteers, consider a wide variety of formats. And I'll provide you quite a few examples as we go along. But don't just send an email update. Take advantage of social media tools, making phone calls, recording little videos. There's lots of ways to keep your volunteers connected.
The third clip I'm going to show you shows us some advantages of partnering with other service providers for greater efficiency and effectiveness.
I want you to think about how your organization might partner with other agencies in the community. Here are two great examples. In Pittsburgh, organizations are coming together to provide 9,000 meals to families in need. Rather than going it alone, they're working together to be more efficient and effective in their operations. And another example, in Carroll County, Maryland, a human organization is volunteering and donating time with an animal organization. Together, they're delivering food to the families that need them. I mean, 63% of Americans have pets in their homes. And so rather than one organization delivering human food and another organization delivering pet food, they're working together to make one delivery. Not only is that more efficient and effective and allows them to serve more people, but it also protects the people who are doing the deliveries by reducing the amount of contact people need to have. So working collaboratively can be incredibly important in reducing the numbers of volunteers who need to be out on the front lines.
The next clip is very critical to us as we continue to strive to serve our communities in difficult times. We need to make sure we are keeping our volunteers safe. And this clip will address that.
And it's incumbent upon organizations to ensure they're keeping their volunteers safe during the coronavirus outbreak. Is your work considered essential by your local government? If not, volunteers really shouldn't be allowed to volunteer for your organization on site. If volunteers are on site and show any symptoms of COVID-19, fever, cough, shortness of breath, they should be sent home immediately. And of course, you should be providing PPE protection to everyone when they're working. When recruiting, it's important that you clearly state how you are keeping your volunteers safe in order to use the system. Reassuring your volunteers that they can volunteer safely and how you're protecting them will go a long way. And ensure that everyone, volunteers, staff, the clients you serve, are following your safety procedures.
And finally, realizing that this video is only one of many that can help you as leaders communicate Go to the sites and inquire about engaging volunteers, and you will find a variety of information that will help you during COVID-19. This final segment will wrap up. Get to it here.
Applications will be due by September 1, and the exam will occur between October 1st and 14th. To learn more, check out their website.
You got a little extra there.
In closing, if we invest in our volunteers, they will invest in us. There's a lot of research out there to support this. In fact, organizations that fundamentally leverage the talents of volunteers are significantly more adaptable, sustainable, and capable of going to scale. Organizations that engage volunteers are equally as effective as their peers without volunteers, but many at almost half the median budget. Volunteers give up to 10 times more money than non-volunteers, and most donate to the organizations in which they're involved. An effective volunteer engagement has been shown in some cases to reap up to a $6 return on every dollar invested. So the important work we're doing today to keep our volunteers engaged will pay off for us and our organizations in the long haul in helping us meet our missions. The final word of advice: things are going to go wrong, and that's okay. We are in unprecedented times. Try to roll with it as you're trying new things and you're engaging volunteers in a virtual way. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. We will get through this together, and our volunteers will help us with that. Thanks so much for joining me today. Please stay healthy and safe during this time. And if we can provide assistance, don't hesitate to reach out. Our websites are adisagroup.com and energizeinc.com. We look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, let me get back here. I encourage your sharing of any additional comments and suggestions to make the engagement efforts more effective in our organization. Please use the question and answer capability previously mentioned. Also, share your success stories during these challenging times by directly sending them to sertoma.org and sharing them on the Sertoma Member Corner. Thank you very much, and I hope you all have a great day. I've enjoyed this opportunity.